within the communal areas and things like that. So basically that's what this concept is about, is to be able to change that fire regime using early burning so that we have less uncontrolled wildfires and we have less greenhouse emissions and we have better functioning ecosystems and more biodiversity. So Chobe District fits many of those concepts that this is about. So in the first few years we've been working at a high level within central headquarters in Gaborone. We've also been doing research here in Chobe, and we also have a pilot site in Sodilo, around Sodilo in Ngami Land West. Okay, so over the years, so we basically had 2 full years because COVID took a year away. So we've had 2 full years. Main focus on the ground has been research so that we can measure the difference between the emissions of early fires and late fires. So we've been doing that for a couple of years. Last year we started more supporting the existing early burning program that forestry had been implementing for several years. We're all aware of that. And so last year we brought in a bit more support and did a bit more early burning, and we had a very successful year last year in keeping the wildfires away. And then this year we've been putting and scaling up efforts and resources and really pushing much harder and trying to engage and include more stakeholders. For example, with wildlife coming on board, where we maybe a month ago burnt some of your area in the north there. And so it's about, this meeting is about just bringing that together, and as we go through the experiences of the fire management, issues come up, and then that's what the pilot's about, is working through these issues so that then when we go to other places we have strategies in place on how best to balance the fire management and the other land uses that would make a project area. Okay, so that's where we're at. Is that fairly clear? In a nutshell, it's pretty basic. It'll take a long time to get this working. There are many elements that need to be in place. The fire management's probably one of the more obvious ones, and that takes a few years to get everybody up to speed about why we are doing it, how to do it, and how to understand the benefits of doing it. So we're on that path already. It needs a lot more stakeholder consultation with all of the different land tenures and stakeholders within the Chobe District to make sure that they are wanting to be involved, that they understand what this concept is about. It needs mechanisms in central headquarters in government through the ministry about how, once the credits are generated, who benefits from those credits, who gets the money, how does that mechanism work, how do we get it to the community, which is a very strong element of this. There needs to be many community benefits from this idea. There are monitoring and verification things, so we do a lot of remote sensing from the satellites to see where the fires have been, where the fuel loads are. We have fire histories for the last 7 years for the whole area about when was the last time it was burnt and what the sort of fire return intervals are in each and every area. We need to make a methodology which basically converts the fire management into a carbon credit, and that's what the research has been informing. over the last few years. So there are many elements that need to be in place for this all to work, and it will take some few years more to be able to, at the end of the day, say, here's the money you earned from the fire management, back to the community, back to forestry, back to parks. That's basically the idea. So we've had obviously issues coming up as we've been scaling up the early burning this year, which is what the whole point is. It's a great catalyst to push and precipitate these issues, because otherwise people don't really remember them or realise them, or it wasn't an issue before, but that's something we need to consider and balance and manage. We had a stakeholder meeting on Friday, basically from all of the district, to talk about those sorts of issues and make people aware. For example, the district commissioner's office and that sort of thing, and the land use planning unit, that sort of thing. We need to make those people on board about this idea and how that can work in Chobe district. As the director just mentioned, we've also been discussing higher up the chain with the permanent secretary of the ministry to see how it can work at that level, so that we have more political support in Gaborone for this kind of efforts. And so, in a nutshell, that's where we're at.
So, Robin, can I interrupt for a second? I think it might be useful to ask forestry and wildlife just their thoughts on using early burning or the burning program to control fire. Like, is it something that that you think is successful? What's your impression so far about how it's gone, and just what you think about what Robin's trying to achieve with using fire to manage the wildfires? And so maybe forestry, could we ask you?
I'll talk about last year, because I came in last year here. So what we experienced was that following our early burning, we had reduced fires. When we look at the previous years and the history of this district, there are a lot of fires that cross from the east side going to the west, probably because of the wind direction. So most of our early burning last year, we focused along the roads, the Pandamatenga, the Soma roads. So it helped a lot. We reduced the hectareage so much. Yes. So we didn't have many fire incidents. Of course, we had them, but not as compared to the previous years. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if
Yeah, actually, Pusa burning has been part of it's part of the history for the department. It's been done a long time. It's only that now we need to fine tune it, so that we do it right. Even the national parks, they've been doing it. What we let the fire burn inside the park, we don't start it. We let it burn because we know the benefit out of it. At least here in Chobe, we've done that quite. We know it's wrong to do that in the park, but if you don't start it, you can benefit out of it. So it's been part of the history that we've been doing the prescribed ban and trying and reduce the fuel load. But now that we are developing, we are fine tuning it to do it the right way. Because even the history shows that some old people used to do it, but I think they were doing it without now the technology that is there now.
yes.
Now we need to take it along with us so that it's not all lost. And I think one of the things that we probably need to look at is when you talk about carbon credits, when you talk about carbon sequestration, carbon trade, the ordinary people out there, they want to see tangible results. So I think that's one point we need to dwell on too. Need to teach people that what is it that when you say you are going to be trading on carbon, because they expect when you say you're going to get something, they expect you to be coming out with a bucket full of money and say, you sold some, or this is the money. But it will take time, I think, before, like he said, it will take time before they get there. I think one of the things that needs to be well on the education part of it, so that we educate and they understand what is it that we're trying to do. So thank you.
Can wildlife give them a chance to say what?
Yes, like my colleague is saying, fire has always been part of wildlife management. We use it to manage the savanna. Over time the biomass accumulates and becomes a problem. So if you don't control it by burning or controlled burning, it goes out of hands, or it gets out of hands to the extent that when fire comes, the whole protected area is ravaged, and you can imagine for the poor wildlife what is going to happen. So we haven't been practicing it effectively because, like the coordinator is saying, we used to have frequent fire occurrences, especially here in the Chobe National Park, and we'll be losing a lot of wildlife species to trapping and all sorts of things. But since this collaboration, we've seen a lot of changes. There are fewer occurrences, and so we think by way of this collaboration, we will be, getting things to close to perfection, so that we don't get so many fire occurrences every year in the park. Yeah, I don't know if my colleagues want to add. Actually, they are new in the district. I'm not old myself, but I think I have better years than
Okay,
and they've been around.
interesting.
Well, thank you. It's good to get those perspectives. So it's really good. And it seems it seems positive that we're taking something that's known to work to you guys, and really not changing it a whole lot, but just trying to bring maybe some science, as Jomo said, maybe a little bit of quantification around the carbon, so some new things to it, and really just building on that.
Actually, we've been complementing it with grading. Yeah. So when we discuss it, I see that maybe controlled burning could come cheaper than grading.
Mm-hmm.
So I think going forward, maybe we'll look at grading and probably show it aside and practice more early burning.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think especially from government agency side, it costs a lot of money to do this sort of stuff, and most, especially environmental agencies, we are the bottom of the list when it comes to national budgets and so there is never enough resources, there is never enough vehicles, there is never enough staff to be able to do the job that needs to be done. And so that's what this idea is that if we can generate the carbon and the economic benefits from that funds the fire management and equipment and the people and the resources that need to do it. So it's a way to improve your management by doing something that's within your control and a bit more decentralized from saying having to wait for all of the budgets from central government. Because there are many issues involved with that. And so it's in many places in Northern Australia, the government agencies and the government land are doing it, and they are generating the income from those activities. It's real money that comes through.
So if I can ask,
Yeah.
it's an open question for all Botswana sectors. So do you have any text and laws that are ongoing regarding that subject of the carbon credits? How is this?
Can you say it louder, please?
Yes, sorry. Do you have a scheme on the carbon credits, maybe future structure in Botswana? Some
Not-
laws or texts that are going to determine how it can work?
Legislation. So I think maybe some can help with that one. You want to help?
So one of the things we've done is over the last few years is we've looked at the whole range of elements that you need to put in place in order to create a carbon credit and buy the carbon credit and sell the carbon credit. So we've looked at working with the communities, understanding where the fire opportunities are, doing what Robin's been doing, working to understand whether it works on the ground. We've also looked at the science, as he said, so the monitoring systems and the measuring systems. And we've been able to, over the last 3 or 4 years, establish that the monitoring systems used in Northern Australia, we can ground truth them here, and so we're ready to have a method. But the other thing we've done in terms of the framework is assess the legal and policy settings for doing what we're trying to do here. So we've got quite a detailed legal assessment of the situation. Although there isn't a carbon market being established per se or in Botswana, there is within the existing legal framework the opportunity to create a carbon credit through basically a lease arrangement. So what we're doing is working with. We've done the assessment, and the next couple of years we'll be working with the department about creating that legal assessment. And in fact, that's what happened in Australia initially. Was that there was no the pilot experience was established in 2007 in Arnhem Land, which predated a carbon trading system in Australia. But there was a lease arrangement between ConocoPhillips and the traditional owners of the pilot site for the carbon credits. And so a similar kind of situation exists here. Under the property law of Botswana, there's no prohibition to creating a lease a property right through a lease agreement, a type of lease agreement over a carbon credit. So we're hoping that relatively easily and therefore quickly we can generate the right legal framework to create the credit without having to establish a big complicated carbon trading scheme. And
The field before the theory.
yeah, well, and it worked very well in Australia because with that example, they were then able to use that when they did develop a few years later the first carbon trading scheme in Australia. The fact that this existed meant that it was easy to bolt into the system, and so it was included in the very first carbon trading schemes in Australia as a result. And that became an official part of the Australian scheme. It's been a solid part of the Australian scheme since it began in 2009. Because it's had this practical on-the-ground results and did, generated all these benefits. Both sides of politics, despite the politicization of climate change in Australia, both sides of politics have recognised that this was really a valuable mechanism, which they've fully supported through the entire journey over the last 20 years. And I think it's worth highlighting that Robin, he's done a great job just to simplify everything, but there's been decades and millions of dollars of effort that have gone into developing this. So we're here at a very exciting moment where we're ready to we've got the elements to show that we can begin to scale up this experience around the world, starting here in Botswana. But it's not just a couple of years' work by Robin and a few of us. It's standing on the shoulders of many thousands of people and millions of dollars of R&D which has gone into it. So if you look at the science and the measuring and policy settings that we can put in place, they're backed by this very powerful experience in Australia, which has been a great success over 2-3 decades now.
so legislation will be the last part at the end when everything is proof of concept, you can say you can put it everything into legislation.
Yeah, I think that would be, well, I mean, it's up to the government how they approach this, but our suggestion is that if you wanted to put in place a credit quickly and simply, then this would be a route which was used in Australia very successfully, and we would recommend a similar route here.
You mean on a national level? Yeah, that's definitely, I think, up to the government to decide how they all want to.
But I've been working with Bat Sheppy about this and explaining, we've been thinking about it, and I think, that's a route which we will be exploring very carefully with her.
I wanted to add that our legal framework, we're just about to complete our Forest and Range Resource Bill, which is being finalized at the moment, and it will come up with regulations. And as you know, the climate change is something very new. Botswana has just completed, the government of Botswana has approved the climate change policy last year in April. It means that we are really on top of things in terms of legal frameworks. And then when we bring in the issues of experience and sharing nodes with Australia, then we find this quite relevant. And then we also have quite a lot of protocols and conventions that we are aligned to, so that will support us in anything that we might venture in. For instance, right now it's the UNFCCC, there's the UNCCD, there's the CBD, there are lots of all those conventions. We are party to them, ratified and signed as a government, and we will be able to showcase anything that is legal alongside with these instruments, together with the legal instruments that we have in Botswana. We have other laws, like the parks are governed by legal laws that we align ourselves with whenever we make any decisions regarding this kind of conversation that we are having right now. And we really want to see how it can work, because it's still a pilot. And if it's successful, we'll find it more fitting for the government to take a leading role in terms of making sure that people understand it better. Because the critical part is people to understand. Whilst we do understand here, we also want the communities, the real people on the ground, to be able to understand and take it easy. So that's basically how. Is that okay? Thank you very much.
About what you just said about the communities and the understanding of the carbon project, do you want to educate them on the benefits of the carbon, how it works, or are you engaging them in the benefit sharing?
I think we are still at initial stages of consultations. We depend a lot on our district platforms here. The district platform is the local authority level. I think that's the part that you understand. The district setup is such that they will be able to give us a way into the communities, and and how it's going to be implemented in the long run is through the consultations that are already taking place at the moment. We don't have a rule of thumb to say this is how it's going to be done. We depend a lot on the consultations that are already taking place, and this is the team that is on the ground that will guide us through those consultations.
And also the answer to that question can be also well informed by the experience in Australia again, because each community engaged in this, of the many that Robert mentioned, their motivation for it varies, but it's largely because it reinforces or allows them to do things they want to do as a community, and the carbon is an ancillary extra which pays for it, and there's a basic understanding about it. But the real reason they're doing it, and the real understanding they have, is because it's about culture, about practicing traditional ways, about making their landscape productive and protecting themselves from late dry season fires and things like this. So when you sit down with the community leaders and talk about why they're doing what they're doing, all of these kind of cultural and social values are right at the top, and the other ones like adaptation and mitigation, are important because it generates an income which is valuable, but they're not the main motivation, and that's the real reason why it's self-sustaining in many of these communities in Northern Australia, because it's allowing them to practice what they want and achieve the goals they want. And we'd imagine the same would be here and anywhere else you did this. So the community would sit down and want to do it for a whole range of different reasons, but really value the income that would come from mitigation. And it's not really complicated. The mechanisms for measuring and logging it in Australia are fully automated. So the community uses a fully automated system which allows them basically to use a mapping system, and they can look at where the fires have gone, which is then logged each day, and at the end of the year they press a button and the calculation's done for them by a special tool, which is a very sophisticated piece of software, but they don't really need to understand the software. They just know that they've generated so many credits at the end of the year. And we've shown with our work up to date that monitoring and those tools we can easily replicate for here or pretty much anywhere in the world.
What kind of tools for the monitoring? These maps you were talking about, or other resources?
So it's a satellite-based monitoring system which uses various satellite feeds, mainly from NASA, but it could also be from European Space Agency. They use a MODIS kind of Landsat measuring thing, which measures real-time the fire scar mapping, and Robin and the managers use it every day to understand and plan their burning and see what happens. But that's logged in a platform which can be set up based on what's happened in Northern Australia, so that you can see the entire year's effort, and it measures it in terms of fire scar mapping. And then there's a tool which converts through the method and the equations that have been developed. A tool then can translate that GIS mapping into tons of carbon.
And this tool is managed and developed by the government or by private company
In Australia.
in Australia?
It's managed by a sort of a research school at the Charles Darwin University. I'm not sure who owns SAFBAT now. Nafi? Sorry.
Well, so there's
It's open, so you can adapt it for Botswana with.
Yeah. Well, we're working with the developers of the tool in Australia. So the scientists who've been here before and been working here are centred around the university in Darwin, who have developed the monitoring system and the tool for the measurement, the SAFBAT tool, and they're engaged in this work here too. So they're keen to help set up a similar system here, and in terms of and they don't see any technical difficulties with that. There is obviously training priorities, so it's not much. They can run it from Darwin, but of course that's not going to be very useful in the long term or sustainable. So we need to train people up here who've got those GIS skills and that expertise, which we're doing, and is an important part of the work that we've done so far, and it will be a very important part in the long term, so that the Botswanan people can manage the tool themselves.
I think our vision for the tool is to make it a global tool.
Yeah.
So it could be used anywhere, so Botswana's well, obviously we got the first test case in Australia, but that was set up specifically just for Australia. And then the next test case in Botswana, I think the goal is to develop that tool in such a way that it can work globally. Now, some of it that may be a little bit easier, some aspects easier than others. So at the moment, some of the thinking is maybe like the fire monitoring might be regional. I don't think it has to be, but that's kind of some of the considerations is maybe some of the monitoring of the satellite, the use of the satellite, the processing of the data is kind of regional based. But certainly we would think the calculation bit could be a global tool.
It's very important to track the previous fires, the history, and add more transparency to
Yeah,
the system.
and actually, like, to be honest, that's probably the harder bit. The bit that then takes those results and calculates, does all the calculations and says this is the credits. That's probably that's relatively simple, right? Because the scientists develop all the formulas. Then it's just kind of coding them up. But the harder bit is using the satellites to effectively monitor the fire, accurately measure the scars and those kind of things.
The beauty of that system is that all the monitoring is just essentially based on burned area and mapping those fire scars. So whether it's reduced emissions, abatement or sequestration, the methodology itself just links what the burned area is on the particular fuel age and the vegetation type. So the monitoring is just the fire scars. And then the co-benefit and social stuff as well, obviously, but for the emissions side.
Do you have, like, among you a team leader who can just say your experience and how you expect us to perform, like in a brief?
And we can talk a little bit about what we are doing in the team and in Total Energy as well, if you want. I begin?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So in total, we were Total 5 years ago, oil and gas company. You know Total like that, and so we changed to a multi-energy company. That's why we are Total Energies right now. So we're investing a lot in electricity, in windmills, solar system, hydrogen, and so on. And since a couple of years, we have set objectives to avoid and reduce our emission, and we try to be carbon neutral. We will be carbon neutral in 2050. So for that, we avoid and reduce everything we can on all the streams in Total Energy. And what we cannot avoid and reduce, we will compensate with nature-based solution or with CO2 sequestration. So 3 years ago, we set up a team, so the NBS team. It's a business unit, so it's a real team, not just a project, but a team that will continue to exist during the next years. Today we are around 20 people in the team. So we have people for project management, for carbon expertise, for forestry expertise, for ESG expertise. So a whole team of people that do things, not just buy credits and so on, but do projects. In our objective, in total we want to develop projects that store carbon. So we have different kind of projects. We have a sequestration project when we reforest. For example, in Congo, we reforest a big area of 40,000 hectares in the savannah. We have a project to conserve area in Latin America. For example, we have a project with more than 1 million hectares to conserve, to help. It's a national park, so we help the national park to reduce and stop the illegal logging with a lot of community work to help people to have other income and not just remove logs and plant illegal crops. We have other projects in Australia. You can talk a little bit about that. But we are looking at all kinds of projects. And something that is very important for us, and you will see with the question that is important, we develop projects with local stakeholders and government and everybody involved in those projects. Other companies, they just invest some money in the project and they say, okay, we will buy the credit on the market with a 10 or 20% discount. We don't do that. We don't buy credits. We don't sell credits. We don't trade credits. We invest in projects and we get the credits if the project works. And we are here with people on the long term. We are not just saying we will buy credits in 5 or 10 years. We will do the project for 20 or 30 years or more if we need. We are here on the long term with our stakeholders.
As Gregory mentioned, we have 2 historical projects in Australia, and that's how we came to work with another entity of corporate carbon for soil carbon projects. So transitioning local landholders in Australia to more regenerative practices in pasture management, essentially. And as Gregory mentioned, we invest in projects and in various stages of project development. So for certain projects, such as our Peruvian ones, we invested money in a project that was already well structured. For our Congo Basin one, we helped set up the entire operation. And the opportunity that we saw in collaborating with Mackey Planet Solutions through the ISFMI was really for investing in the framework that's going to be able to build up the project opportunities, not in as many regions as possible and in as many regions that today would benefit from better savanna burning management, as we could see in Australia. So we are present through our different projects, and we invest in the long term, whether it's early stage or in later development stages. But yeah, we're in here for the long run with a clear vision as to where we're headed, and we like to establish trust in all our partnerships with the different stakeholders that we have, since we heavily rely on our local stakeholders for all the different investments that we're.
If I can add something, it's also really important for us to have projects that are really of strong quality, which means that are certified by standards that are high quality, with co-benefits for the communities, with co-benefits for the environment. So it's really important to have all this discussion and all the stakeholders involved, so we can have the best project in each area.
And it's also for the long term, the engagement of the local population and the different communities, also respecting FP processes and consultation processes, depending on the national and international standards, like the World Bank, for example, and to understand what the communities on the social aspects, what they have, the value chain, and how they benefit also from the project, because this is an important key point for the long term in the project.
Thank you. Yeah.